Welcome to Hannity. Laura Ingraham, Lou Dobbs, Austin Goolsbee, Corey Lewandowski, Herman Cain are all here tonight. But first, President Trump unveils his budget that keeps key promises like strengthening our military, building the border wall, slashing government spending by deconstructing the administrative state. And here's the president talking about some of his budget priorities. Let's take a look.
We are proposing a budget that will shrink the bloated federal bureaucracy, and I mean bloated. My administration is also following through on our promise to secure, protect, and defend that border within our United States. Our southern border will be protected always. It will have the wall. You see what we're doing with our military. Bigger, better, stronger than ever before. You see what's happening? And you're already seeing the results. Our budget calls for one of the single largest increases in defense spending history in this country.
Also tonight, President Trump, he strikes back against the alt-radical left that is once again putting the lives of you, the American people, at risk by going judge shopping. Why? To shut down the president's revised travel ban. Now that's tonight's very important opening monologue. It was not hard to see this coming. Two Barack Obama-appointed federal U.S. district judges have blocked President Trump's revised travel ban executive order from taking effect. Now, true to form, President Trump is doing what he always does, and that's fighting back. You gotta love it. Watch this.
Hundreds of refugees are under federal investigation for terrorism and related reasons. We have entire regions of the world destabilized by terrorism and ISIS. For this reason, I issued an executive order to temporarily suspend immigration from places where it cannot safely occur. A judge has just blocked our executive order on travel and refugees coming into our country from certain countries.
All right, we've been saying on this show that this is all part of the radical left strategy to undermine the president, delegitimize him, in this case, cherry-picking liberal judges to rule against what are very legal constitutional executive orders. But now what we're seeing is becoming far worse because these activist judges, they aren't just slowing down the president's agenda. Now they're putting the lives of you, the American people, literally in jeopardy. Now, at this point, it is very clear the left would rather score cheap political points than listen to the repeated warnings about the risks of letting unvetted foreigners into this country. And it's important for the left to hear this because these warnings initially came from Obama-era top U.S. national security and intelligence officials that ISIS would infiltrate the refugee population. Take a look.
Would that bring in Syrian refugees pose a greater risk to Americans?
I mean, it's clearly a population of concern.
The concern is in Syria, the lack of our footprint on the ground in Syria, that the databases won't have the information we need. So it's not that we have a lack of process, it's there's a lack of information.
And that obviously raises grave concern as to being able to do proper background checks of the individuals coming into the country.
Yes.
I don't obviously put it past the likes of ISIL to infiltrate operatives among these refugees.
We can only query against that which we have collected. And so if someone has never made a ripple in the pond in Syria in a way that would get their identity or their interests reflected in our database, we can query our database till the cows come home, but we're not going to. There will be nothing show up because we have no record on that person.
There is some fear that some of these refugees may actually be posing as refugees, but they might actually be Al-Qaeda or ISIS terrorists trying to sneak into Europe or the United States. What do you make of that?
Well, certainly that's a possibility. I mean, you can't dismiss that out of hand.
We should be conscious of the potential that Daesh may attempt to embed agents within that population.
The group is probably exploring a variety of means for infiltrating operatives into the West, including in refugee flows.
It is an outright dereliction of duty to flat out ignore what all of these officials are saying, the warnings, the admonitions to us, not to mention the list of countries in this revised travel ban, it came directly from the Obama administration and Congress, not President Trump. And to the alt-left critics of the ban, I urge them to take a look at Fox News, reporting from last week. Here's the headline. Iraqi insurgent fighter allegedly lied about identity, got through extreme vetting. Now, the investigation into this is still ongoing, but it could show exactly what President Trump and all those top Obama officials had been saying could happen to this country, that terrorists can infiltrate the refugee population coming in here. So tonight, America needs to make a very, very profound choice. Actually, it's very simple. On the other hand, do you want to sacrifice your safety over the fears of slightly inconveniencing a few people? Now, there's nothing wrong with finding out if people who want to come to this country agree with our values, constitutional rights, our principles. In fact, that should be a prerequisite before coming here. Now, it's time to put protecting your life, the life of the American people, over being politically correct. Now, we can't let the left drag us into another pre-9/11 mindset, because we've seen what happens when we let our guard down. The 9/11 terror attacks, well, it could be the only evidence the left needs to see what happens when the country is not being vigilant. 2,996 Americans died that day, and over 6,000 others were injured. We saw what happened at the finish line of the Boston Marathon bombing. Terrorists took the lives of 4 people, including 2 policemen. They injured 264 of our friends and neighbors. In San Bernardino, California, 2015, jihadists, couples slaughtered their co-workers at a holiday party. 14 people dead, 22 others injured. Remember, Orlando, the Pulse nightclub in Florida, radical Islamists savagely attacking people in that club. They killed 49, injured 53 other people. Now, here's the truth. If the alt-radical left wants to continue to undermine the president's ability to keep you, the American people, safe, and if a single person dies because Trump's extreme vetting policy is being blocked, they will have blood on their hands. They own it. Here now with reaction, the editor of LifeZette, editor-in-chief of LifeZette, Fox News contributor, nationally syndicated radio host, good friend of the program. This is not a joke, because all these instances happen here. If you want to come to America, is it really, really that bad that we're going to check out that you're coming here as a friend, not a foe? Is it really that horrible to do that?
Now, Sean, you hit the nail on the head. The president's responsibility, supreme responsibility, is to safeguard our independence and freedom, safeguarding our security. And without security, our freedom doesn't mean a lot. You have to have a secure nation. And our framers entrusted the executive, the chief executive, the president, with this responsibility. The fact that we have district court judges in Maryland, in Hawaii, in Washington State, or Oregon, or California, or pick your poison, who want to, just on their own, with a stroke of a pen and a lamely argued opinion, lamely written opinion, want to just wipe all that away. I mean, I can now really understand why Judge Robert Bork believed it was probably time to circumscribe the jurisdiction of the federal judiciary, because it's gotten out of control, completely absurd in these rulings. And even if you don't like the policy of what Trump is doing, President Trump is doing, the legal reasoning is preposterous. And most serious legal scholars understand what I'm saying when I say it.
Let me pick your legal mind then, because you are an attorney. A lot of people may forget that, part of your many credentials and background. But they actually use the Establishment Clause here, which is obscene and absurd when you actually look at this. And then there was no analysis of the authority that's actually under the Constitution that gives the executive branch or the president as commander-in-chief. But we have 8 U.S.C. 1182, 8 U.S.C. 1187. The statute gives the president the authority over immigration determination, and 1157 gives the president broad authority over the refugee issue.
Yeah, entire classes of people. Right, entire classes of people can be excluded from the country if the president sees fit to do that because of any number of considerations. The statute is very clear. The Constitution, nowhere in the Constitution does it prohibit the President of the United States from doing exactly what he did. And even if this was a Muslim ban. Let's cede it. Okay, let's cede that issue to the left. And I don't substantively, but just for the sake of argument, even that wouldn't be prohibited under our constitutional understanding. That's not what the framers intended. And again, we have activist judges, both of these appointees of Barack Obama. One of them's entire experience has been in the government. The Maryland judge, which you might already have covered, Sean, was involved in the Benghazi issue. Chuck Grassley urged other Republican senators to vote against his confirmation because he was at the Homeland Security, the State Department, excuse me, during the Benghazi issue. We don't have to get into all of that, but these guys are political players. And they're making a political statement in these opinions, and anyone who cares to look at this fairly will conclude that.
All right, let me go to the issue. This is one of the strategies that was actually outlined by David Brock and his group of rich donors. But one of the strategies is, you know, to tie the Trump administration up in the courts. Clearly, this is being judge shopped. Clearly, not only do they go, apparently the judge who issued the ban in Hawaii is apparently a former classmate of Obama's, law school classmate. But they also wanted to go to the Ninth Circuit. They're overturned about, what, 80% of the time, one of the most overturned courts in the country. So it makes it harder. They have this ability to tie it up. Now, I think it goes to the Supreme Court. Supreme Court, I can't imagine, is going to go along with this reasoning. What do you think?
I think you're right. The judge shopping is something that has vexed both Democrat presidents. Donald Trump doesn't like it, but neither did Obama like it. When the DACA case came up, and there was a district court judge in Texas who stopped those work permits from going forward. But again, it goes to the question of the judiciary, Sean. And I think we all focus on the executive branch, we focus on the legislative branch, and that's understandable. But right now, there are 90 key vacancies on the federal bench that Jeff Sessions, the Trump administration, those guys have got to fill those vacancies, because there is going to be extreme havoc being wreaked upon the Trump agenda. He's the president of the United States, but extreme havoc, roadblocks, monkey wrenches. There'll be frivolous lawsuits filed. Some of them will be thrown out, some won't be. And this will be a constant problem they have to deal with. They've got to fill these vacancies and get great judges in there who do not make the law but follow the law.
All right, Laura, great analysis as always. Thanks for being with us.
Great to see you.
All right, also coming up tonight, an explosive new investigative report from Sarah Carter and John Solomon of Circuit News. Their reporting suggests a hacker may have been behind the communication between this Russian bank and a server connected with Trump Tower. Quite exculpatory, right? Anyway, we'll check in with them, and then later tonight.
Some of the fake news said, I don't think Donald Trump wants to build the wall. Can you imagine if I said, we're not going to build the wall? Fake news. Fake news.
President Trump says a border wall will be built, despite what the mainstream media is reporting. Lou Dobbs will react to that, and also tonight.
I don't remember the last 3 days because I've been so up.
All right, it's that time of year again. Ever wonder what happens? Your kids head off to spring break. We sent a Hannity producer this time down to South Padre Island, Texas, to find out how dangerous this might be for your children. Straight ahead. Welcome back to Hannity. So Sarah Carter, John Solomon of Circa News recently reported that the FBI looked into the activity of a Trump-related server in a Russian bank and found no nefarious conduct was happening, despite what you hear in the news media. And tonight they're reporting that the bank, quote, reported to U.S. authorities that mysterious communications resumed recently between one of their computers and an email server that is tied to Donald Trump's business empire, and it has developed evidence the new activity may be the work of a hacker trying to create a political ruse. Sarah and John are here to explain more. All right, step one you found out was there were two investigations, one FISA warrant, one other warrant. As looking into the broader issue of Russia influencing the campaign, not about Donald Trump, right?
That's correct.
They discovered nothing, including even though they did have access to the server, or at least a server, that serves at Trump Tower, correct?
That is correct.
They had access to some computer logs, right, that showed what was going on there. That's right.
All right. Step two, and again, no evidence found. They moved on. They didn't even think it was a big deal at all, this idea of connections between the Trump campaign and Russia. True?
That's right.
That is correct.
Yeah, very true.
All right, and last night you talked about a woman, big donor to Hillary Clinton, that with a computer background, that she and others were the ones advancing and pushing the story of the Russia-Trump connection. True?
Yep,
that is true.
Right.
Okay, and the media ran with it. That's where we got the New York Times saying Trump was wiretapped, et cetera?
Well, it was certainly one of the storylines that raised suspicion that Donald Trump had something secret and nefarious going on with Russia, which we now know the intelligence community no longer, never believed and still doesn't believe.
What did you think?
That's right.
Go ahead,
multiple reports. I mean, this server connection last year, when these reports started coming out, I mean, it was everywhere. In fact, even today, Sean Spicer was talking about it as press conference. So this actually, these pings between Trump's server and Russia's Alpha Bank became a whole fodder for many stories across the United States during that time. Correct.
All right, so now you've taken it to another level just late today. And the other level, I'll let you begin it, Sarah, that Alpha Bank is asking the Justice Department to help unmask where the pings are coming from. They believe it's in the United States, correct?
That is correct. They believe it's a third party masking these pings, that they're connected to a server inside the United States. And think about this, Sean. They are asking, a Russian bank is asking the U.S. Justice Department to investigate this. They were hacked 3 times this year. This is how they figured this out. Because in February, there was a hacking. Then in March 11th and March 13th, they were hacked again. But they were able to trace this. So now they've gathered this evidence, and they are willing to share it with the Justice Department. That's what our sources have told us, that they're going to share all this evidence with the Justice Department in the hope that they'll find out who is doing this hacking.
All right. John, I want you to weigh in on this, because we don't know for sure if the other 2 hacking attempts that this bank dealt with, which kind of led to and snowballed into this investigation in the first place, right? We don't know if it's the same as the recent hacking attempts, do we? But do they suspect it was also outside of Russia in the United States that it could have happened?
Yeah, no, absolutely. So talking to people close to the new investigation, the bank last year thought, listen, this was just simple computer communications going on when spam email hits a server and it bounces back and says, I don't want your spam email. They're now beginning to rethink that, thinking maybe there was a hacker all along trying to create a political hoax, trying to create the impression that there was something nefarious going on. So take a look at this story's evolution. A week before the election, headlines that Donald Trump has a secret computer connection, a backdoor way of talking to the Kremlin. Then we find out it's perpetrated by someone or advanced by someone that has a Hillary Clinton sentiment and pushing the story. Now we find out maybe the whole thing could be related to a computer hoaxer trying to create the impression of it. Now that's how the story's been evolving over this last week.
So the bottom line is we do have our intelligence law enforcement have looked into it. They have found 0 evidence. Now, there was the WikiLeaks revelation that shows that the CIA has the capability, and I'm not accusing them, but they have the ability, the technology, where they can take malware, Russian malware, et cetera, and they can actually be the hackers within the CIA or put the fingerprints of the hacking on China, Iran, Russia, or any other country. So we know this technology exists, Sarah, right?
We know this technology exists, but also there are hackers out there that have this capability as well. So we just don't know. I mean, was this done? Will we ever find out the truth? Was this done by some kind of government entity? Was this done by a separate hacker working with another group? Is this connected politically?
Well,
this is something that needs to be investigated.
When are our intelligence officials going to say, we have nothing here? I mean...
Well, they have something. Oh, they have something. They have now at least a springboard to start investigating who tried to make these connections. If what the Alpha Bank is alleging is true, who tried to make these connections between Trump's server and Russia's bank. And that's very serious.
How convinced are you that this is a setup? Real quick, I have to run.
You know, I think that the most recent ones, there's going to be very strong evidence. When you look at the logs, this was somebody trying to create a trick, create the appearance. We will have to go back and see if they can recreate what happened in the fall and get to the truth.
Unbelievable.
Absolutely.
We're going to keep having you guys on. You're doing great work on this, and I don't think either one of you are the member of the right-wing conspiracy like me, so we appreciate your hard work. It's fascinating. This is almost as interesting as Homeland to me. Thank you both for being with us.
Thanks a lot.
And up next, tonight, right here on Hannity.
Some of the fake news said I don't think Donald Trump wants to build the wall. Can you imagine if I said, we're not going to build the wall? Fake news. Fake news.
President Trump, he struck back at his liberal critics for lying about the border wall being built. That is coming up in my mini monologue with Lou Dobbs, then later tonight.
What time did y'all start drinking today?
1 hour ago, but like 7 shots in 7 minutes, so we're good.
We sent a Hannity producer to South Padre Island, Texas, to expose exactly what your kids are doing on spring break. It's getting worse. We'll show you.
Good evening and live from America's News headquarters. I'm Jackie Ibanez in New York. The GOP health care bill clearing another hurdle. The House Budget Committee narrowly approving the measure today in a 19-17 vote. The health legislation now moves to the Rules Committee, the last stop before a full House vote, where the bill could fall short of the votes needed. And U.S. forces conducting an airstrike against an al-Qaeda meeting location in Idlib, Syria. Now, according to Central Command, the attack killed several terrorists. Back in January, a strike destroyed an al-Qaeda terrorist training camp where more than 100 fighters were being trained in terror tactics. And a close call yesterday at the Port Authority bus terminal right here in New York City. The NYPD saying a man left an improvised explosive device inside a deli at the station there, but it didn't detonate. 39-year-old Arsenio Mason was arrested nearby and has been charged. I'm Jackie Ibanez. Now back to Hannity. For all your headlines, log on to foxnews.com.
Welcome back to Hannity. So last night at his rally in Nashville, Tennessee, President Trump, he struck back at the alt-left propaganda destroy Trump media, who claimed he will not build a wall with Mexico. Take a look.
We will build the wall. Don't even think about it. In fact, as you probably read, we went out to bid. We had hundreds of bidders. Everybody wants to build our wall. Usually that means we're going to get a good price. We're going to get a good price, believe me. We're going to build the wall. Some of the fake news said, I don't think Donald Trump wants to build the wall. Can you imagine if I said, we're not going to build the wall? Fake news. Fake news.
It is so fake. It's vicious. Now, even in the face of these attacks by the alt-left destroy Trump media, when it comes to his campaign pledges, President Trump's not backing down, and that is tonight's mini monologue. All right, the president's made it very clear that he is going to deport criminal illegal aliens, and he's going to build the wall. And it was one of his key campaign promises. Now, that's not stopping the left and the press from relentlessly attacking the president. Now, as we have shown you, I have personally been down to the border at least a dozen times. I've been on boats. I've been flying in helicopters, on horseback, all-terrain vehicle. The horseback was embarrassing, but I tried. I've seen drug warehouses, huge drugs targeted to this country. I also saw tunnels that were drugged. I've seen illegal immigrants being detained, including one gang member. And in 2014, with Governor Rick Perry, I sat through a briefing down in Texas where we were shown shocking statistics about how illegal immigration and crime was affecting Texas alone in a 7-year period. Watch this.
Criminal aliens have been responsible for about 642,000 offenses, criminal offenses.
Governor, I've been down to the border 8 times now. 8 times, and I'm learning things here today that I never knew of, and I like to consider myself pretty informed on this issue. 642,000 crimes in 7 years, having orchestrated that we have brave men and women that are literally using military tactics to fight what they consider to be cartels. 642,000 crimes in a 7-year period impacting you, the American people. Our communities are being hurt every day by the drugs that are pouring across these unprotected borders. The president says he wants to stop this from happening. He has already taken the steps to make you, the American people, safer. And today, President Trump released his budget proposal, which over the next 2 years calls for $4 billion to fund the construction of the wall. Keeping a promise. Here with reaction. He's been all over this for many years from the Fox Business Network, our friend Lou Dobbs. He's keeping his promises. Why do they not believe him at this point?
I think it's important we talk about who they are, and it is fake news. It is the national left-wing media. We don't need to call them liberal media any longer. I mean, these guys have moved so far. Watching Sean Spicer today, contending with that group of quote-unquote, air quotes all around it, journalists, it should have been embarrassing to those people. This is the president. What other president has talked about drugs as President Trump? None of them have talked about drugs in that way and focused on the border. He said he's going to build a wall. That's to stop human smuggling, certainly. But you also see his great passion in evidence every time he talks about the heroin epidemic in this country, because most of that heroin is coming across the border from Mexico. Most of methamphetamines, marijuana, cocaine. He is the only one who's had the guts to step up and actually say these words. We're going to fight the cartels who smuggle the drugs and the human
trafficking is out of control
as well. And I mean, and he doesn't get credit from the national media. There's one clever columnist over at the New York Times that has both the integrity and the soul to talk about fellow Americans the way the President of the United States does.
It's like he's lied about in ways that I don't even know if it's worth responding. I get lied about. You've been lied about. I don't care. But when they outright lie about the president, there's a reason and an agenda. Absolutely. I think it's to tear him down, delegitimize him, and drive him out of office.
He refutes everything the left-wing liberals in this country have been spewing, the nonsense, their programs for a half-century. Go to any major city, look at the crime rate, look at what's happening with gun violence in the cities with the most stringent gun control laws.
Right.
Look at the programs that aren't working but are being funded by the billions of dollars. He is bringing truth and reality to a whole group of politicos who are on the left, and they will not abide being confronted directly by a man who delivers on his promises and knows what he's talking about.
You know, with all the noise we hear from a lying media, don't you think that at the end of the day, when we have a re-election in 2020, that it's all going to be about what promises he's kept and all this noise is meaningless?
I think you're exactly right. And those Democrats, those liberals, those lefties who are dreaming of 2020, it's going to be their worst nightmare, and they've got an indication of it already, Sean. This president is keeping promises, and one of the things, if I may, I noticed in that rally in Nashville, he was with his friends. They were talking about a common adversary. And he is more comfortable with the people. Those are the people who matter for all of us.
He doesn't have to do another interview again. He really doesn't. Just go directly to the people.
I think that's exactly right.
Well, I don't like that. As long as he keeps me and you in the loop, I don't care about these other people.
Absolutely. We can make that recommendation.
Yeah, we'll try. All right. Lou, thank you. Coming up, alt-left propaganda analyst Rachel Maddow trying to defend her laughable, quote, big get from earlier this week. That is, Donald Trump in 2005 paid $38 million in taxes, a higher tax rate than her own company, and even Barack Obama and Bernie Sanders. Anyway, we'll get to that. Also, Austin Goolsbee, Corey Lewandowski will weigh in on that and much more straight ahead.
Oh, God, I saw some guy do drugs off some girl's, like chest. It was pretty crazy.
That was you and me.
Ever wonder what happens when your kids head off to spring break with your money? We sent a producer down to South Padre Island in Texas. It's getting worse than ever. And welcome back. Hannity Show. NBC's Rachel Maddow is taking a lot of heat for her massive viewer letdown the other night when she focused her show on President Trump's 2005 leaked tax return. Now, she's not pointing the finger at herself. No, in an interview with the Associated Press, Maddow says, quote, because I have information about the president doesn't mean that it's necessarily a scandal. It doesn't mean that it's damning information. If other people left to that conclusion without me indicating that it was, that hype is external to what we did. So, I get it. It's the viewer's fault that they were let down. Oh, okay. Rachel tweeted this, though, the quote, breaking, we've got Trump tax returns tonight, 9 p.m. Eastern time. Seriously. And then one of her liberal colleagues, Lawrence O'Donnell, tweeted out, quote, yes, seriously, I will be watching. And then, of course, this is the night we've been waiting for. Well, sounds like a typical liberal to me. You know, sound like Obama blaming George Bush for 8 years. Here was reaction. Former Trump campaign manager Corey Lewandowski, former Obama economic advisor Austin Goolsbee. Austin, he paid a higher rate paid $38 million in taxes. You're the economic guy. He paid a higher rate than Comcast NBC, a higher rate than the Obamas at 19%. He paid more in that 1 year. The Obamas paid $6.1 million in 16 years. He deserves a pat on the back. He looks pretty generous to me.
Well, I don't know. That was 12 years ago. I'm surprised you're going through this, Sean. I thought you don't like them releasing this kind of information.
No, I don't have a problem with NBC reporting it at all. But I would like it. But whoever leaks it, that would be a felony, and they would get 5 years in prison.
I was going to say, Sean, that I'm going to be upset on your behalf because, as you know, I have been totally consistent on both WikiLeaks against Clinton and on the things against Trump. I don't think people should be dwelling on getting illegal stuff and illegally releasing it. I don't think they should be doing that.
Listen, and I can appreciate that point of view. But you know what? In journalism, it doesn't matter if you're an advocacy journalist or a liberal journalist like Rachel is. In that sense, she's protected. But, Corey, that's not the point. I think the bigger point is here that here you have the fact that they tried to tie this to a 2005 property sale of a Trump property to a Russian oligarch where he more than doubled his money, and somehow the Russians in 2005 knew that he was going to be president, elected in 2016, and take the office in 2017, and somehow they were buying some influence back then, when NBC couldn't even figure out on election night that Donald Trump won. It's a little bit humorous to me.
Sean, it's amazing. I'm going to tell your readers, your listeners, something that they may not already know. Donald Trump is really, really rich. He made $153 million 11 years ago. He paid $38 million in taxes. What we know is he bought a piece of property and he sold it for double what he paid for it. Good for him. That's what smart business people do. You know, if the liberals had their way, they'd want to be saying that he took a loss on the property. The bottom line is he did what is very best for his family, for his business, for all the people who work for him. He paid 25% in taxes, an effective tax rate at the federal level. Now all of a sudden the liberals don't want to talk about that. They don't want to talk about the fact that Bernie Sanders paid 13% effective tax rate. Donald Trump paid 25%. Nobody is now saying, well, Donald Trump isn't really rich anymore. He made $153 million 11 years ago, Sean. This is real money even to liberals. It's amazing.
Yeah, your friends, the Obamas, they're not doing so well. They're not keeping up with Donald Trump's rate. They only paid $6.1 million in 15 years, and Trump paid $38 million in a single year. And the Obamas paid a 19% tax rate, much lower than Donald Trump paid.
Wait, Sean, it almost sounds like you're talking about the tax returns that President Obama released, and you're comparing them to the tax returns that President Trump never released. This is from 12 years ago, Sean.
Right. It was
we would
found
like
in a
to
mailbox.
see, as all
Vladimir
the presidential candidates of all the last 45 years, every president has released their tax returns.
And you know what?
Except
There's no
Donald
obligation,
Trump.
no legal obligation
There's
to do
no
so,
obligation.
is there?
There's no obligation, right? Is there anything that could be on the tax returns that would make you upset if you found out that he had received actually direct payments
a year to get
from Russian oligarchs? Would that upset you?
Birth certificate, for crying out loud. He didn't want to release that either, which was stupid.
He went after Barack Obama's birth certificate, said he wasn't born in this country and wasn't a citizen. Did that bother you?
Sean, Sean, what's amazing is now they don't want to talk about Donald Trump's tax returns. Van Jones, who is no supporter of Donald Trump, said this was a nothing burger. The fact is Donald Trump paid 25% effective tax rate, and he made $153 million. He's really, really rich, is what he's always said. And now the liberals don't want to talk about it because he's paying more in taxes than Barack Obama or Bernie Sanders combined at this point almost.
All right, guys. Appreciate you both being with us. All right. Big controversy. McDonald's. Now, I love a quarter pounder with cheese, French fries, and a Coke, one of my favorite meals. Anyway, their Twitter account was hacked earlier today. They put out a nasty tweet about President Trump. We'll tell you what it said. We'll get reaction from the one and only Herman Cain, and very nasty voicemails today. And there you got it. They're back. College kids hitting the beach once again for spring break. This time, we sent a Hannity producer to South Padre Island, Texas. You think your kids are having fun? How dangerous is this? We'll expose it. Coming up. Twitter went nuts after McDonald's corporate account tweeted an attack against President Trump, writing, quote, "At real Donald Trump, you are actually a disgusting excuse of a president, and we would love to have at Barack Obama back. Also, you have tiny hands." Now, McDonald's later addressed this tweet, writing, quote, Twitter notified us that our account was compromised. We deleted the tweet, secured our account, and we're now investigating this. Joining us now with reaction, former presidential candidate, he's laughing, Fox News contributor, Herman Cain. I was so close to being so unhappy because if they tweeted it, I wasn't going to eat McDonald's, and I'm on a diet right now, but I'm so addicted to McDonald's fries and especially quarter pounders with cheese and a Coke. The best meal on earth. I'd eat it every day if I could get away with it, Herman.
Hey, Sean, if it were not such a powerful brand like McDonald's, it would be funny. If this were XYZ Burger, nobody would care. But because it's a very powerful brand like McDonald's, it matters. But here's the other thing that McDonald's did right. They immediately responded so they could protect their brand. This is another indication that people have to be very careful of what they read on Twitter, what they read on the internet, or anywhere else. McDonald's did the right thing in protecting their brand, so I think they will come off unscathed from this.
Yeah, I agree, and I'm grateful because giving up a quarter pounder with cheese would be enormously hard for me, even though, again, I'm on my diet. All right, let's go to some other issues here. Imagine this. We'll put up on the screen Snoop Dogg's new video, music video. We've been talking about it. Pointing a fake gun at a clown dressed as Donald Trump and pulling the trigger. Let's show our audience. Now, the president responded, also tweeting out, could you imagine what the outcry would be if at Snoop Dogg, failing career and all, had aimed and fired the gun at President Obama? Jail time. And then, by the way, then you got this guy, whatever his name is, Bow Wow or something, saying, at real Donald Trump, shut your punk blank up talking blank about my uncle at Snoop Dogg before we pimp your wife and make her work for us. Imagine conservatives saying this about the Obamas in any way. What would the reaction be?
Well, first of all, that whole thing is disgusting and disrespectful. You don't have to agree with someone to respect them, and it also shows that he does not respect the office of the President of the United States of America. The liberal media and people like Snoop Dogg insisted that we respect President Obama and the office of the presidency, and now they are doing the exact opposite. It's just simply disgusting and disrespectful, and I would certainly hope that it doesn't send a signal for others to do other similar sick stuff.
Well, I got to tell you, a little scary in a lot of different ways.
Yeah, it is.
And the double standard so flagrant. I don't think it's going away. I think the media is obsessed with destroying Trump. You don't disagree?
Yes. I don't disagree at all. They are obsessed with trying to destroy him. But you know what, Sean? What I'm hearing from my listeners, it's not working. People are not stupid, and they are aware of this attempt on their part to destroy this administration, this president, but it is not working.
All right, Herman Cain. I still love Godfather's Pizza, even though you left the company. You work for, what did you work for, Coke or Pepsi?
I worked for Coca-Cola for a number of years.
Right.
They and Godfathers. The best of both worlds.
The best of
Coke
both worlds.
And
See,
a
I said
Godfather's
Coke.
pizza.
You get a quarter pounder with cheese, fries, and a Coke. All right. When we come back, all right, apparently some very nasty messages. You're leaving for me on the Hannity hotline. I can handle whatever you got. And it's that time of year again. We sent a Hannity producer down to spring break in South Padre Island, Texas. Well, it's getting worse than ever. We'll show you what's going on down there. We'll be exposing the dangers of spring break next week. We'll have a sneak preview tonight.